Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Casey right here on Wall to Wall Country, and another great show is well underway. We've already heard some great music from some great traditional artists as well as some new stuff back in there, and I hope you enjoyed what we've managed to do so far. As always, we love to have a very special guest in the second hour of our show, and we're very honored today to have a 36-year veteran of country music. Started out just like me, which is kind of fun, as a disc jockey on an AM radio station, and now is one of the most well-known classic country artists, as well as new music he's putting out there. So happy and honored to have on board Mr. John Conlee. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you and great to be with you today.
I am so excited to have you here. I mean, I'm sure our interview could go on forever, as your career is just so, huge, and you've got a lot of songs out there, but want to touch base on a few things because you're doing something that's really unique. You're coming out with new music and a new album. You're still doing some touring, but how about if we, for the sake of argument, maybe touch base on a little bit of the roots of where John Conlee came from, because being a country music artist wasn't really in the forefront of your thoughts as a career, and I thought maybe it would be nice for people to find out how you got into that career rather than doing what you were doing, quote unquote, back in the day. Can you give us a little background, John?
Sure. The thumbnail would be that I was raised on a farm in Kentucky, spent all my growing up years there, went from there to the funeral profession, of all things.
Wow.
Started part-time, but I pursued it for a total of 6 years and got my licenses to do it. But I still had an itch after 6 years to scratch an old itch that I'd had since I was a kid, which was an interest in broadcasting. And so I struck out, got a job at a radio station in Fort Knox, Kentucky to begin my radio career. Spent 9 years in radio altogether, and
Wow.
7 of those 9 in Nashville. And that's the reason I moved to Nashville, is because I got a job at WLAC Radio here.
And that's pretty awesome. Now, this was not a country radio station, if I understand correctly. This was a different genre.
Oh, yeah. I never worked at a full-time country station. There was one station at which I played about an hour of country early in the morning before we switched off to other music. But I never worked for a full-time country station, and it doesn't really matter. Radio's radio, kind of music you're playing, or if you're doing news or whatever, it's still broadcasting. And but I loved country music. I was raised on it and listened to it when I was off the air here in Nashville a lot. And I also listened to a lot of other music, R&B. I still probably listen to more R&B than any other format. And gospel, I love that. So I love soul music, and I was able to translate that into a country career.
Now, how did your breakthrough song, everybody knows your name is synonymous with the great song Rose-Colored Glasses, but how did that song end up being the one that you started out with? Give us a little history on that.
Well, it's a song that I wrote, first of all. I wrote it and Backside of 30 within about 6 weeks of each other back in 1976 when I was still at the radio station. And I wrote the first 2 verses and the chorus of Rose-Colored Glasses and thought I was through with it, I guess. I mean, I didn't, as far as I was concerned, I was done. But I was playing it for a friend of mine that I worked with at the radio station. And he loved it, and he got all shook up, and he got out a pencil and started writing what we turned into the 3rd verse of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of gives the song hope, really. It gives you hope that maybe this relationship finally could end up working out. If I'd have left it with 2 verses, I don't know that it would have ever seen the light of day. Who knows? Nobody will ever know, I guess. But anyway, that song and Backside helped me get that first recording contract. It was actually our 4th release. We released 3 other songs prior to Rose-Colored Glasses, that didn't work. And the first one was Backside of 30. And, of course, later we re-released Backside, and it became a hit. But the deal was this. People ask me all the time, well, did you know Rose was going to be a hit? Nope, you never do know that.
Right.
I knew it was very special to me. And from my time in radio, I also knew that sometimes your first release or 2, they just don't make it. It's hard to break through. And if I didn't want to lose it. So we took the chance with Backside of 30 first and a couple of other songs. and then released Rose, and of course at that time it took off, and it became our first hit and got me out of radio eventually.
Moved you into the big bus on the road, right?
On the big bus on the road, exactly right.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Do you still kind of do tidbit in radio announcing at all? I mean, that's just a question I'm wondering.
Well, it's something every now and then I sit in for Bill Cody on WSM when he goes on vacation or on a trip or something. I've done that several times, but that's about it. No, I don't. There are stations that have said I need to fill out an application and put it on file in case I ever want to go to work again, so that's very flattering. I still love broadcasting a lot. I love radio. I've got an old Stereo 80 Gates pot board sitting up in my office here at the house, and some old turntables, and some of the things that I used to use when I was doing it. Of course, I know it's a different world now with computer, but so I still love it. It's in my blood, and it would not be impossible if something happened that I couldn't sing anymore or didn't, whatever, people didn't want to hear me do that. It wouldn't be impossible for me to consider doing a radio show again.
Well, let me tell you something. I wouldn't make you fill out an application. I would be like, you just come right up to Pennsylvania. I'm the boss. I'm the boss here. I'll hire you in a heartbeat. How about that?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You would have a home here.
Nice to have that ace in the hole,
Yes, you would have a home here, no doubt about it. And speaking of home here, and I don't know if you realize this, but you've actually performed at our venue here. Mr. Fred Reinhardt wanted to pass on his hello. And also offer that if you ever did want to come back to the Penn's Peak venue, our doors here would also be open for you as well. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, you never know. It could happen. It could happen.
Yeah, if you're out on that, what did you have, 70 stop tour throughout the summertime, and you happen to be up in Northeast PA, feel free to, get in touch, and, we'll try to get you on the schedule here.
Well, I would love that. We're in Pennsylvania usually once or twice a year anyway, so that could fit in very nicely.
I know Fred would love to see you again. That was a for sure thing.
I appreciate that.
Let's get back to some of your music, though. Now, you've had a bunch of #1 Billboard hits. You already mentioned, Back of 30 and a couple of others, including Common Man, I'm Only in It for Love, As Long as I'm Rockin' with You in My Eyes. Out of Lady Lay Down, out of all these songs, did you write all these songs?
No, I only wrote or had a hand in writing a couple of the singles, Rose-Colored Glasses and Backside of 30. The rest of them have been written by the full-time people who do it so well, the people like Sonny Throckmorton in the case of Friday Night Blues, and She Can't Say That Anymore, Harlan Howard with Busted, and I Don't Remember Loving You, and people like that who, Red Lane on Miss Emily's Picture. So once I started having hits, then the A-team songwriters, so to speak, are always interested in showing you their material.
Okay.
So we, that's what happened when we looked for new material. We had something to choose from with some of these great writers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You ended up putting them together and creating a whole bunch of albums, and taking them out on tour, and people just fell in love with them. I want to touch base on something about the Rose-Colored Glasses songs, just real quick.
Sure.
I read a couple of times that you actually have the original Rose-Colored Glasses pair hidden away somewhere.
I do. I used them for the first couple of years. Then the deal was very simple. I mean, when I do the song on stage live, I pull the glasses out of my pocket and stick them on my face and do the song. But I finally realized that if just Murphy's Law, something's going to happen to these things. If I'm not careful, I'll drop them, break them. Somebody will grab them. Something will happen. So after the first couple of years, I decided to retire the original pair. I stuck them away in my safe, and of course, then later we ended up making the glasses a concession item at our shows anyway. So I used actually a pair of those just like we sell at the table after the show.
Nice. Do you ever take them out anymore, or are they just kind of sitting in there waiting for prosperity?
Yeah, I check them out just to make sure they haven't disintegrated. Whatever. And so far, so good.
Nice. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there who are like, when he's no longer here, that's the first thing I'm going after is those glasses.
Right.
You know, they're going to be iconic. They're going to be in a museum somewhere, you know?
Well, that's not impossible, I guess. But right now, they're tucked away just ever so safely.
Nice. Good to know. I'm sure that would be a fun thing to put definitely into a museum, right alongside like Dolly Parton's studded dresses or something, you know.
Yeah, and I've got one of those in my closet as well. I might drag it out too.
Oh my. Okay, that might have been a little too much information there, John.
That's too much information. Well, and it's not true. That's another thing about that. It's not true either. But I couldn't resist. You opened the door and I had to walk through.
And that's all right. That's what makes some of these things a little fun. So let's move on just a little bit, John. You've been doing this, oh my gosh, for a long time. You're a member that's constantly at the Grand Ole Opry. I hope to get down there sometime this summer and maybe run into you and shake your hand.
That'd be great.
You're seen there quite a bit, and you're also been put into several other great accolades, including like the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame and so many more, doing performer, getting more music out there, you know, still on the road. John, how do you keep the passion for that? How do you keep the energy for that? I mean, you know, it's one thing, these new artists, you know, they've been doing it 5, 10, 15 years, but over 35 years you've been doing this, and sometimes I just wonder what keeps the fire lit. How do you still get up every morning and say, I'm still going to do this today?
Well, first of all, I have been able to take what was always my main hobby, which was music, singing. I was just doing it for me, you know, sitting around the house, expressing my heart and my soul by singing. And so I've been able all these years to make a living at my hobby. And when you're doing that, it isn't work. And it's fun, and it still is for me. You know, I'm blessed to have a voice that has held up very well, and in a lot of cases, you know, it's easier to sing now than it ever was, less stressful on my voice and all that stuff. And so because of that, I mean, it's just fun for me to do, and so it's not work. I guess that's the answer to your question. I don't consider it work, and people still want to hear me do it. And
right.
So, you know, as long as all that's true, I'm going to be. Another question people ask all the time is, what are my retirement plans? Well, I don't have one.
Uh-huh.
I don't find the word in my Bible, first of all, and so as long as I can do it and people want to hear me do it, I will be attempting it.
That's awesome, and that's so good. You know, and it's a blessed thing to be able to say, I love my job. You know what I mean?
Sure. That's right.
And,
well, everything I've done to make a living, everything from this to radio, I fell in love with radio and music at the same time. I'd take a guitar lesson on Saturday morning when I was 8 or 9 years old that only lasted a half hour. I had time to kill the rest of Saturday while Mom finished shopping, so I'd go across the street, hang out at a local radio station, and take home copy out of the trash can, the old news copy and commercials and stuff. And I spent more time practicing radio than I did music in a lot of weeks. So I loved that. I've got to make a living at that. I was interested intensely in the funeral profession before that. Don't regret. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the 6 years I spent doing that, I learned more about people than I could have with 2 or 3 college degrees. So, you know, all of the things you do in life, if you are conscious of it, will prepare you for what God has for you to do for the rest of your life. And they're all stepping stones. And so I wouldn't change a thing.
Good words of advice. So take what you can out of everything that you do in life in more of a positive aspect instead of, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can learn from everything that happens to you, whether it's negative or positive.
Right.
And, you know, and take advantage of it. Or you can stew in your own juice and feel sorry for yourself.
True.
And, you know, that'll get you nowhere.
Right. Absolutely. So taking the, you know, the educational route and taking the more I'm learning and turning into the person that you are and turning into, you know, this awesome performer and writer and singer and songwriter and all that. Taking that and putting it into your music. Let's talk a little bit about your music. Let's get back to that. And you have a brand new album coming out, John?
Yes, Classics 2 is the name of it. It is out now as we speak. It's available should find it in stores, but you can always get it for sure at hard copies at johnconlee.com. And, of course, it is you can download it at either iTunes or Amazon or some of the other download sites as well.
And you have a couple of tunes we were talking about. We'd like to feature some of the music while we've got you on the phone here, so you can tell us a little bit more. Because I think one of the things about music is you can listen to a song, and I think people tend to like incorporate it into their life and what it means to them. But it's also a nice kind of other side of the coin, so to speak, when you can hear about why you picked a song or why you wrote a song or why you did a song the way you did it, and then people can listen to it kind of like in a different way. And one of the songs that is on it, which actually you've recently released as your single, is a little something called Walking Behind the Stars, a tribute to law enforcement. Do you want to give us a little bit of background about how that came about?
Sure. It was written by two fellows named Phil Thomas and Ronnie Scaife. Phil had both a grandfather and a great-grandfather who served in sheriff's offices in his native Texas years and years ago, and he thought of the line, Walking Behind the Star, when he thought of his grandfathers in uniform. And so he got with his friend. They wrote the song 16 years ago, and it was never recorded by anybody. And I've said that maybe they were, when they wrote it back then, they were planting a seed that was due to sprout now, because, as we all know, our police have been under attack in recent months, up to and including being assassinated in a couple of cases. And
right.
I mean, that's just, that's something that needs to be turned around before it can ever take a stranglehold on us and put us in anarchy. And
right.
The people who are on the front lines on a daily basis to keep that from happening are our police and sheriff's department and law enforcement. So this song pays tribute to them. It is in honor of them. It gives them a pat on the back, and we wanted to do that. But we also wanted to remind ourselves, our citizens, hey, you better support them, because they're the only thing standing between you and a lot of evil. And,
right.
We just need to recognize that. So that's why we did the song.
And you remind people to stop taking their safety for granted and their peace for granted, and know that
right.
There's a reason why it's there.
Exactly. Well, and in our culture and in our world today, I am convinced we have people behind the scenes who would love to see our nation go down and would love to see us in anarchy.
Right.
They work for it on a regular basis. And in my opinion, for what that's worth, some of these events that have happened have been, the fire has been stoked by these kind of people. And, we citizens need to be aware of that and do everything we can to support the people who can stop it.
Right.
That's our police.
Absolutely, and I'm with you on that. So I think what we need to do is play this song for folks if they haven't heard it yet, or even if they have, now that they understand the story behind it.
Yeah. And
let everybody give it a listen. So John, if you can hang on for just a second, we're going to take a quick break. And we're going to come back with that tune. Can you hang on for just a minute?
I sure can.
Awesome. We're going to have more with Mr. John Conlee and his new album coming out, which is going to have this song on it. This is his single that he released. Now that you know the story, folks, I think you really need to give it a listen. Listen to the words and kind of take it to heart. Make sure that you understand what this one's all about. And maybe, just maybe, it can make a difference one person at a time. It's a little something called Walking Behind the Star, and it's a tribute to law enforcement. That and more John Conlee coming up right after we take a quick break, right here on Wall to Wall Country with me, Casey, on Penn's Peak Radio. Brand new music from this guy. It's called Walking Behind the Star, tribute to law enforcement. What a great song, good words, a lesson to be learned in that song, and something that people really need to take to heart.
I agree with you completely, and again, it's a reminder for we, the citizen. But if nobody heard it except the people who do walk behind that star and put themselves on the line every day, it will have been worth our doing it.
Right.
And so, it is our goal to get it in to get it in the hands of everybody in law enforcement.
Well, we'll make sure we get that song in our rotation as well, John, and get some more times where it's going to get out there and get heard by more and more people, and definitely make sure that people understand what it's about. Speaking of heroes, not only our police or our fire or any of our EMS people out there risking their lives every day, one of the things that I read, and I hope I'm right on this, is one of the things that you also support and work with is an organization called wounded warriors.
Yes, we have, I think we mentioned earlier briefly, the song called Busted, which talks about being broke. We were able to bring that song back. It had been a hit several times, actually, but the one that I was most familiar with as a kid was the Ray Charles version of Busted. Well, lo and behold, we recorded. It's a hit for us as well. And a few years ago, when we were doing a show at a fair in California, and I'm singing Busted, people started bringing money to me at the stage and handing it up to me as a joke, just to get a laugh.
Uh-huh.
And we ended up at that show with about $60 by the time the joke was over.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to think of something good to do with it. We ended up donating it to charity, Feed the Children. It was an organization we supported for a lot of years, raised a lot of money for them. But because our nation was and still is at war, that it produced so many wounded veterans, we switched the focus, and now the money that comes to us, we distribute to the various organizations that help our wounded warriors.
Is there something on your website, John, that if people just want to say, hey, listen, I want to throw a couple bucks your way, is there a place that they can find a way to make a donation for that?
Well, what we encourage people to do is there are a lot of different organizations that help, Wounded Warriors Project being one of them, and that's one of the ones we support. But we just recommend if they want to do that they just deal directly with the organization. And otherwise, the money we collect, we do it at our shows, at our live shows. That keeps everything a lot simpler.
Okay.
And I'm a firm believer that, well, let me say this. I'm one of those people who would love to see the government get out of the charity business, and because it ends up being messed up and it ends up being a control issue. But for that to happen over time, it means we individuals have to step up.
Right.
So, I encourage anybody to do their own determination of what they want to support and give to, and that'll help get the government out of it, I hope.
Okay. Well, that's, and if they want to do it and they want to make sure that the dollars do go directly to, any of these great organizations. Like you said, you can come to a show, you can listen to some good music, you can hang out with John Conlee, for an hour or whatever, and then you can throw a couple bucks on the stage, and you're going to know that it's going to go to a good cause,
Exactly right. And we support, we distribute it to people like the Wounded Warrior Project. Fisher House is another organization that helps the families of our wounded. Our Military Kids is another one. The Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. There are several of them out there that we distribute the money that comes our way. So.
Awesome. Good words of advice there. So if you folks who are listening want to help John support some of these great places, you can find out ways to do it that way. Or my personal favorite still is just going to a show and throwing you like a couple bucks at your feet.
There you go. That works for me too. We can do that.
I think that would be fun. Let's go back a little bit to the music again, John.
Okay.
Again, off your album, Classics 2, folks can get their hands on it, by checking out, the electric ways of doing it, including the iTunes and the Amazon, or contacting, I'm sure, you on your website or whatever to get their hands on a hard copy.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, JohnConlee.com for the hard copy, or by now it should be in stores. But again, it's always available at our website.
Okay, good to know. Another song that I think is a good tune that maybe we'd like to hear from it to kind of get those, those interested juices flowing if they haven't gotten their hands a copy of it yet, is Domestic Life. Not sure what direction that might go in as a title. Why don't you tell us so we know?
Well, it's one of our later hits that we had back in the 80s, and it's a song about family. It's about living everyday family life, getting the kids to the scout meetings and mowing the yard and keeping up with the dog, and that's really a description of what it is. And I guess I related to it so much back then because I was and still am living that life. I'll be on the lawnmower before we're through here today. Or not before we're through, but right after. So that's what the song is about, and it was one of our bigger hits back in 80, whatever year it came out.
Nice. And, I think one of the things that I like mostly about your songs, John, is they tell a story, they give you an idea, they're crystal clear on, the message that you're trying to get across. Some music tends to get a bit cloudy or not quite sure, but it's nice when you can listen to a song and totally understand what it's about. And I think it's one of the best things that I love about some of the classic country songs, or the songs that are written in that sort of genre rather than some of the newer stuff today. It tells a story, and you understand what this story is about just because of the way you guys write music. Am I on kind of like a right track there, John?
Oh, you're absolutely on the right track. So much of today's music is an excuse to wiggle your hips or something, and to make a video, essentially, without telling a story or without being uplifting. They don't have meat on their bones, is the way I like to put it. And so I've always been attracted to songs that tell a story and that have an uplifting message, hopefully, for the most part. And so that's what we've done, and it's what we continue to do when we look for new songs.
Awesome. And I think Domestic Life does that. It kind of brings you like a little bit down to earth, where people are going, you know what, that's my life too. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I'm the one who has to take the dog to the vet and run the kids here and fix the van when it broke down and cut your grass.
Exactly right. That's right. That's why it works. That's why it works.
It's a great relationship song, and I think we're going to play that. We're going to do a bottom of the hour ID break real quick here, John. Back with Domestic Life off of his brand new album, Classics 2. John with how to get in touch with the guy in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. It's Wall to Wall Country and a little John Conlee. Domestic Life, telling the story about the day-to-day trials and tribulations of just trying to make it in the world, right, John?
That's right. Cruising in my station wagon, trying to keep the muffler from dragging.
Yeah. Or in my case, falling off altogether, and you have to double back to go get it.
Exactly. And it's too hot to pick up, and it's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, and sometimes I think people go, really, is it just me? Does this crap only happen to me? And
That's
I guess the answer is no. It happens to everybody.
Happens to everybody. That's right.
Yeah, whether you're John Conlee or, Casey Parker, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. That's right. You got it.
You got a lot of great music on this album, John, and I think people really need to get their hands on it. It's called Classics 2, again from the website. You can get yourself a hard copy. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'd like one. Putting my order in officially.
There you go.
And, or they can do it the electronics, the iTunes, the Amazons. On your website, John, you got your tour dates going to be on there of where people can find you.
Right.
You're going to be doing some more promoting of this Walking Behind the Star tribute to law enforcement out there. Are you on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, John?
Well, I am. I don't. Twitter less so. I mean, I do have an account, and a friend of mine, a young man named Jimmy Wayne, that you may be familiar with, an artist who's been around here for the last few years. He did a walk a few years ago to call attention to the foster care world, and he walked from Nashville to Phoenix, Arizona over the course of several weeks. And I signed up on Twitter back 4 or 5 years ago when he did that, just so I could keep up with his progress. It took him weeks, and he's just such an amazing guy. But so do I tweet every day? Absolutely not. I don't. But one of the, we're going to set up a Twitter thing that we can stay in touch with folks, because I know a lot of people do that. Okay. We do have a Facebook account, and I mainly signed up on that to keep up with my pictures of my grandkids.
Oh.
But we have a presence there. We're going to create a fan page, which we haven't done quite yet, but we're going to do that. So just keep checking. We do have a presence, or we will very soon.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking. People can already sign up for the guest book here on your website.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is nice, and I love the pick that people have to check out your website, johnconlee.com, just for the fun of it. You're holding onto a microphone, you got the glasses in your hand. It's almost like you got the whole DJ, singer-songwriter look going on all in one shot. I love that picture.
Well, it's an old microphone. It's an old RCA 44A. It was the model number of it, and one you see in the movies when you watch Turner Classic Movies or some of the old flicks. You'll see that microphone a lot of times, and in fact, they've now people like Glenn Beck and some other broadcasters are using a new version of those old microphones. They have that old look, but they have a modern sound.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. We love that kind of stuff too. Obviously, for obvious reasons.
Sure.
But I just love the whole pick looks great.
Well,
So, I know you got the music out and stuff like that. Is there something you can tell us that's new and upcoming, John? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe a little something that you got your irons in the fire for? Can you give us a little insight of what's new for John Conlee?
Well, we're talking about Classics 2, but directly following Classics 2 will be what else?
Classics 3.
That'll wrap up the hits we've had so far over these years, and we're planning on having that available before 2015 is over.
Wow.
So you can stay tuned for that. It'll be the rest of our hits, songs like Harmony and The Carpenter and some others, and yet again more new music. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have all this new music available this year.
Well, I think everybody can get excited about the music you're putting out, the 70 or so shows that you're going to be doing 2015, and again, you get the opportunity to come up here. I know Pennsylvania folks and New York and New Jersey who also come to our venue. They'd love to see you if you happen to be in our area. So let me just throw that back out there one more time for you, John.
Well, I'm altogether for it. That's certainly something I'd love to do. So hopefully that'll work out.
All right. Well, we'll keep that in mind and stay in touch and all that kind of stuff. One last thing before I close my show, I usually like to play one more song from the artist that got interviewed as kind of a reminder. As this show is Wednesday, but this entire show will re-air again this coming Sunday. And if people maybe missed the interview or whatever, they have a second chance to listen to it and hear some of your music and hear what you had to say. And I like to throw one more song out at the end of the show just to kind of remind people about that. What would be one more song off the album, John, that you'd like me to feature for my listening audience?
Well, it's probably my current new favorite song that we have, in our pocket. I found it on Vince Gill's Guitar Slinger album. He helped write it. He and Leslie Satcher wrote this song. And when I first heard it on Vince's album, I said, I think old Vince needs to have a little help singing this song. I mean, he does a great job, but here's the deal. This song touched my heart so much that I said, I've got to do this song. We started doing it live in our shows, and people responded to it so much that we've included it on this album, and it's a story of redemption.
Okay.
And it's called Bread and Water.
Nice. All right, so that's the song we're going to feature at the end of my show. And just kind of remind everybody to check you out, John, get their hands on your music. Again, the best way to do it is johnconlee.com. Check out his website. You can sign in on his guest book. You can do some online shopping there and get some of his music that way, or even a baseball hat. And
Sure.
Find out some other things about John, where his tour is going, when he may or may not be in your area, if there's tickets available and all that. And, of course, if anybody's down in the Nashville area, you make several appearances on any given month down at the Grand Ole Opry, so they might be able to catch you there as well.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all of the above, and we look forward to seeing everybody before the year's out. So catch us one place or another. Catch us if you can.
There you go. Well, John, I'm glad I got the opportunity to catch you for a few minutes here on the Wall to Wall Country Show. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I just wish you all the best in the years to come with your new music and your new album. Again, Classics 2 is out. Classic 3 is on the docket to be released. And lots of good stuff. And hope to catch you up here in Pennsylvania, if not maybe down in Nashville. But thank you so much for your time, sir.
You are very welcome. Great to talk to you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks again, sir. You have an awesome day and safe travels.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. See you, John.